Hello, everybody. We've got a lot of people joining in. I'm going to allow some people who are recording on their own computers. Great. It's so good to see everyone. There are tons of people coming in. We're so excited for this session. We've had some really great sessions in the past couple months with our partners, Google for Education, and today is no exception. We have an amazing speaker, Eric Curts, talking to us about Chromebooks, accessibility tools. We're going to have a great time. If you are new here, I will provide a couple little housekeeping things before we get started. So my name is Kate. I'll be the moderator for today. I work for a company called Trafera. We'll talk a little bit about ourselves a little later, but not too long. Before we get started, if you have questions throughout the session, feel free to put them in the chat. I will be watching the chat. Eric will keep a loose eye on the chat, and so will John. We'll try to get to your questions throughout the session if we've got a good break. Otherwise, we'll hit them at the end with some time for Q&A. The second part is if you're here and interested in getting the coffee, the $5 Starbucks gift card, all we need from you at this point is for you to stick around until the end and take the exit survey. It's 6 questions, shouldn't take very long. It just gives us some good insight about you that we can use as we kind of follow up with you after this session. So that's super important, and it's our way of thanking you as educators for being here on this session, taking valuable time out of your day to sit and chat and learn with us. And speaking of thank yous, a very happy Teacher Appreciation Week to everyone. And we hope that this can be a session where we can thank all of you for the great work that you're doing, not only in a coffee gift card, but some great learning opportunities. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my friend John to kind of set the scene for us and get us started.
Hello, everybody. I'm John Hill from Trafera. I'm a teaching and learning consultant at Trafera, and I specialize in Google products and am insanely passionate about what we're going to be talking about today, which is accessibility tools in Chromebooks. And I think my history as a teacher, I was a special educator for 17 years and a reading interventionist. And for so many of those years, I could have been, I think, reaching my special education students, my diverse learners, even more if I had the access to what is now available to teachers in a room full of Chromebooks, which is these powerful accessibility tools that our presenter and our guest is going to walk you through and inspire you with. So I'm really excited to be here. I think if you are interested in learning more about Google tools, we'll talk about that, and getting them for your school. We'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. But now I just want to really get to why you're all here, which is our esteemed and accomplished and inspiring host for Chromebook accessibility tools, Eric Curts. Eric, very nice to have you here today.
Well, I am so excited to be with you guys. Thank you so much. All right. Well, hey, let's go ahead and dive on into this. Going to do a little bit of housekeeping myself as well. First of all, I want to make sure, John, everything still looks good coming through on the screen share. Excellent. Got a good thumbs up there. Well, folks, thank you so much for learning with me here today. Excited to be learning with you. First thing first, want to make sure everybody can get to the resources that we're going to be pulling from today. I did drop a link in the chat, but you can also see a bit.ly link up on the screen. Same link. That link will get you to a resource document that we're going to be pulling from for the session. That is bit.ly/Curts-CB access, like Chromebook accessibility tools, so CB access. If you click on that link in the chat, or if you type that link in, it should get you to a document that looks like this. And that document has everything in there that we're going to be pulling from. And I do update this document frequently. So as time goes on, it'll continue to grow and evolve as Google is constantly adding new accessibility tools and features and options. But when you get there, just to give you a little heads up on what you're going to see there, the very top is just all of my contact info. I would love to stay in touch with folks, so please connect with me in whatever way makes sense to you, whether it's my blog, email, social media, YouTube channel, email newsletter, Facebook group, email group. A lot of opportunities. You pick the way that you want to stay connected, because I would love to stay connected with you. And then the rest of the document after that, you're going to find all of the resources that we're going to be going through here, the slideshow, show, some additional support resources, and then all of the tools and features and things we will be exploring in the session there. So please feel free to pull that up to follow along and reference it in the future going forward. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. I will add on to that very briefly just to say that, hi, my name is Eric Curts. I'm an educator from Northeast Ohio. This is my 32nd year in education. I was a middle school math teacher for 7 years. And then ever since then, I've been a technology coach. Basically, I went from teaching kids to teaching teachers. So I spend my time supporting school districts here locally, as well as on my own, traveling around the country, working with schools and conferences and organizations on googly things, accessibility. AI has been a really big topic lately as well. Beyond that, I always got to give a shout out to the grandkids. I'm a proud grandpa, my grandson Gavin and my granddaughter Morgan, and all of my hobbies and interests and things that I have there as well. And then, we already mentioned about connecting. Again, all these connection things are at the top of the document. So if you get in that document, you'll find all of those up there. I would certainly love to continue to learn with you. And again, if you don't have that link yet, bit.ly/Curts-CB-access. All right.
So I just wanted to say real quick,
ahead.
Teachers love to leave these things with resources, and they're definitely going to get that from this presentation.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, and please, and I do want to be very clear about that. Please feel free to use this any way you want. Everything that I create, I release under a Creative Commons license, which basically means you're allowed to copy it, modify it, reuse it. Just leave a link back to where you got it. But please, if you're going to do a training with your staff and some of these things are helpful, use them, please. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. I've been inspired by so many other people with the stuff I've put together. I hope you build on it as well. All right, good stuff. So let's talk about what we're going to be doing here today. So this is a session all about how Chromebooks can help support students. We're focusing on accessibility. That's a broad topic. There's a lot that can fall inside of that. And I really do mean, all learners. This is something for everybody, not just for specific students. This is something that all the students can benefit from. We as adults can benefit from. I use many of these tools myself. And so come to it with that open mindset that these are tools to meet everybody where they're at and help bring them along. We're going to mostly spend our time on the built-in accessibility tools in Chromebooks, but depending upon how much time we have and how much we want to get into it, we may touch on some other things that are just a little outside of just straight accessibility, but are things that definitely are valuable to support all learners. But we're going to start off with the accessibility to get going. All right. So the first thing I want to do is tell you how to make sure you have easy access to the accessibility tool. So Chromebooks have loads of accessibility features built in. Google has had such a commitment to making Chromebooks very accessible for all users. The thing is, you might not always be able to find those accessibility settings very easily. And so here's the first thing you want to do. I am on a Chromebook today. I am using my Chromebook here, so I'll be demonstrating all of this from my Chromebook. If you're on a Chromebook or your students on a Chromebook, one of the first things to do is make sure that the accessibility options are quickly visible in what's called the quick settings. So notice when I come down here to my clock down in the bottom right-hand corner where my battery is, my Wi-Fi and my clock, and I click, that's just what we call the quick settings or the system menu or something. We use different titles for it, but notice how I have an accessibility section right there. I can click on it and boom, look at all of these accessibility tools I have. I can turn them on, turn them off, have access to all of those really handily. Well, you might not see that. You may go, Eric, I'm clicking on my clock and I'm not seeing the accessibility thing. Well, here's the thing. This is something that does need to be turned on, and you can do it by going into your settings to accessibility and then flipping this switch that is indicated here. So if I go to my settings and then I come to accessibility, you'll see this switch. Now I've got it on. I can turn it off, turn it back on, but that's the switch you want to flip, because once you do that, what that does then is it means that you don't have to dig for these. You can just come here, boom, the accessibility tools are ready. You could always, dig into them. You could go into the settings and go to accessibility and you could find all the tools, but that's a lot of clicks. I don't think anybody needs to go through all of that. So much so that I would actually encourage schools to do this in the admin console. So for example, I believe I've got my admin console pulled up over here. So for example, if I am the tech administrator for my district and I go into the admin console, I go to devices, I go to Chrome, I go to settings, I go to users and browser settings, there's a whole section here for accessibility. And one of those features in there, one of the settings is to show the accessibility options in the system tray menu. So I can come in here and click on that and I can say, you know what, for my users, I want this to always be on. I just want to say show those automatically. That way you don't have to worry about a student or somebody who's not as comfortable with the technology going, well, how do I get to that? How do I get that turned on? It's just on. Doesn't hurt anything to have it there if they don't want to use it. But for those who benefit from it, nice to have it on. So that's my recommendation, is to have your tech folks just turn that on automatically. Having said that, there's a lot of other settings in the accessibility area there. We'll pull that back up. We will not go into all of those right now, but there's lots of other ones there. Things we'll talk about here today. You can turn things on or off automatically, so that, you know, maybe you always want to have select to speak just turned on as an option for people. If so, you can do that. You can force that on. You can also do it for different groups. You could go in and say, for a particular group of students, we want this on or off. So just heads up about that. But the point is, once you've turned that on, you're good to go. Anytime you go to that menu, there's accessibility, and inside of there, you'll find those tools. All right, good stuff. And again, please, if you have questions anytime throughout the session, throw those in the chat. We've got some awesome people keeping an eye on that to let us know if
Eric,
there
can I just ask,
Yeah,
so
please.
if you're a special education teacher and you have, say, a room full of 10 students and they all have their own diverse learning, challenges, you could take each of their Chromebooks and apply different accessibility tools that would populate in that clock, like that little menu that pops up. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of options. One is to, in the admin console, just basically have the tools available. And then as a teacher, work with each student one by one and go in and say, okay, let's go into your settings. And for you, we're going to turn on select to speak. We're going to turn on the dictation tool, and we're going to make sure you've got the on-screen keyboard if you want it. Now, I could do that and just have all of those turned on, and now they're ready to go anytime that student needs them. But yeah, I could do that in the admin console. And what I could do is put those students in their own organizational units. So basically think of it as folders. Inside of the admin console, you can create subfolders. Typically you would. This is just a training domain, so I don't really have students in this one. But you could have, typically you have grade levels and things like that in there. But yes, you could make organizational units for specific students and then put those students in those folders and then go in and say, you don't have to worry about it. It's just turned on. I mean, you've got these things already selected. They're not something you even need to ever worry about going in and turning on or turning off. So yeah, every student could have their own personalized accessibility experience on their Chromebook. Love it. And of course, that's going to follow them, because if you do it in the OU, no matter what Chromebook they sit down at, it knows, Gavin logged in. Oh, well, what's Gavin's settings in the admin console? He gets these things. It'll just go ahead and set those up for them already. All right. Good stuff. Thanks, John. All right. So now let's look at some of those accessibility tools. Now that we know how to get them turned on, let's explore a few of them. Now, there's a lot. We won't go into depth on every one. I've picked 8 or so that I think I'm going to demonstrate out of those. I'm happy to mention all of them, and I'm also happy to take questions on any of these if there's some that you've got some additional questions about. But let's start heading down the list here and look at some of them. So again, if I go down to my quick settings and I go into my accessibility, you'll see the very first two have to do with speaking. There's Chromevox and there's select to speak. I'm going to demonstrate select to speak today. Chromevox is fantastic, but I just want you to understand the difference between the two. Select to speak is a text-to-speech tool that I have to be intentional about. Basically, I'm going to select the text that I want to be read aloud when I want it to be read aloud. Chromevox, basically, everything gets read. It's like on all the time, so it's more of like a screen reader type approach where if it's turned on, everything, all the menus get read aloud, everything gets read. And so that would be fantastic for a student who does have a visual challenge where that is going to be giving them that constant feedback. If instead you're saying, I just want my student to be able to, as needed, have things read aloud, select to speak is the way to go. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on select to speak. And notice when I did that, as soon as I did this, itty bitty little speaker popped up down at the bottom. If I turn it off, it goes away. If I turn it back on, boop, there it is. A little speaker just appeared down at the bottom. So that means now anytime that I'm a student reading an article, so here's an article about homework and tests stressing you out from Dogo News. Consider moving to Sweden. Apparently they have been eliminating homework and tests. So if I wanted to read this article, and maybe I could use some assistance. Maybe I want it read aloud to me. Maybe I want to read along with the computer reading it aloud. Now that I have select to speak, I can do that. Easiest way is just to come down and click on select to speak and then come up and drag a box around the thing you want it to read. You can also highlight text. And if you press the search key, which depending on your Chromebook, sometimes it's the everything key, the search key, there's different names for it. But if you click on that in the letter S for speak, that will also trigger the select to speak. Well, I'm going to do the option where I click on it and drag a box around it. And let's hear it read a little bit of the text here. Let's try this out.
While an entire month free of homework or tests may sound too good to be true, that is precisely what the students at Sturenskolan School in Boden, Sweden were treated in April. What's more, the results of the experiment prove encouraging. Starting 2019, the middle schoolers will never have to worry about after-school work or tests, aside from the national examination.
And while I was doing that, you may have noticed I was adjusting the speed too. And unfortunately, while I'm playing the audio from that, I can't speak at the same time the way Zoom is set up on a Chromebook. So I can't give color commentary while I have to jump back and forth. But that's what I was doing there. I was showing how you can adjust the speed. You can also jump forward and backwards sentences or paragraphs. Now, if you do want to change the voice, you can do that too. It's just not in that menu there. I would have to dig into my settings. So not everything is available right there in the menu. But if I do go into my Chromebook settings and I go to accessibility, there's a section here on text to speech. And in there, there's a text to speech voice settings, and there's loads of voices. So just for what it's worth, there are lots of options we can choose from, and not just choose from, but adjustments we can make, rate, pitch, volume, things like that. So there are adjustments if you do want to do that later on as well, you can. But that's the idea behind select to speak. Great option to have anytime you need something read aloud.
Eric, can I just jump in and just say,
yes,
for the millions of post-COVID students who are grade levels behind in reading, this is just so powerful, so that they're, not penalized for their reading level in other subjects that have nothing to do with, assessing their reading abilities. Just a very powerful tool for every subject.
Absolutely. Oh, and I appreciate that broad vision of this because, as I said earlier, I use some of these tools, but I use them for a little bit of a different reason. I use it for multitasking. There are many times I need to read an article and I'm trying to do something else at the same time. I don't know how wise that is, how much I'm absorbing, but I will, on my Chromebook, have the select to speak read the article for me while I'm folding laundry or something like that. And it really is. So, accessibility tools can meet people wherever they're at and can help in so many ways. Now, although this is not technically an accessibility tool, I'm going to show you one other thing about text to speech while we're on this screen. Do you notice how there's an image here with a graph? What if I wanted that to be read aloud? Well, unfortunately, select to speak is not going to help me there because I can select this text. I can't select the text here. Oh, it's a picture. See, it's inside of the picture. So I can't actually grab that text there. Well, here's the thing that's cool. Google has built into Chrome Google Lens, and Google Lens can do OCR, optical character recognition. It can pull text out of an image. So even though this is a Chromebook, this would work on any device with Chrome. What I'm going to show you now is actually cross-platform. This would work on a Mac, a PC, a Chromebook, whatever. But if you have an image with text, you can right-click on it and you can choose Search Image with Google. That is how you launch Google Lens. And what it does is it pops up this panel on the side where you get Google Lens. And over here in this panel, it's going to try to identify what the image is. But it also, if I come in here and just use here, let me see if I can use my mouse to grab it. There we go. I'm getting too close to the edge. Okay, there we go. I can take my mouse and I can select the text. And if I select the text in there, after selecting the text, I now have a listen option at the bottom. Let's try that. Let me see if I can play that for you.
Countries where kids do the most homework. Hours of homework per week in selected countries, 15-year-old students.
All right, and again, hopefully that came through. If I do my buttons wrong, please let me know. But hopefully that came through. And so that's a neat thing for text to speech, even if it is something inside of an image. That's leveraging the Google Lens technology that is built into Chrome, which is really nice there as well. All right. Good stuff. Well, let's keep going because there's lots of other tools. Another one I love is Dictation. Dictation is the other direction. Instead of text to speech, it's speech to text. So I can speak and it will type for me. Now, you probably know, yes, there is definitely dictation tools already built into some things, like in Google Docs. If I'm in here and I want to do, text to speech, I can come in and I can click on the tools menu. I can go to the voice typing option and I can hit the microphone. Now that I have clicked on the microphone, anything I say will automatically be typed into the document, period. Okay, but that's not a Chromebook thing. That's a Docs thing. That works on Macs and PCs and so forth. The limitation is it's a Docs thing. It works in Docs and it works in slides, and we kind of run up against a wall at that point. Well, what we can do is we can turn on Dictation. So if I come down here to my accessibility tools and I flip on Dictation, now this little microphone has appeared down here in the bottom. And so now I can use this on other things. Like, let's say maybe I'm doing a Google form, maybe I'm taking a quiz and I need to type in a response. Well, Doc's voice typing isn't going to work there. So I need something else. In this case, I could use my Dictation tool. So I'll click in the box here. I'll click on the little microphone. Now that I have clicked on the microphone, anything I say will automatically be typed into the Google form. And there we go. And so this works anywhere that there's a blinking cursor. So if you need to type, no matter what the situation is, the Dictation tool is a fantastic way. So for writing emails or filling out a form, typing in something that doesn't have the built-in accessibility feature of voice typing, that is a great option for you there. Good stuff. All right. Next up, let's see. Another one that I'll give shout out to is the color inversion feature. What this does is it basically inverts the colors on a web page. So we'll pop on over to our Dogo News article. If there's a situation where a white background with black text is too much of a contrast there for the student to be able to see that, we can come in here to our accessibility tools and flip on color inversion. And basically, it makes it a negative. It just completely color inverts it, But again, if the black text with the black background with white text is easier to read, great. That's fantastic if that's the case. Now, there's a lot of tools that do that sort of thing, but what's built into the Chromebook is that color inversion option. Now, I did skip over color correction. I don't want to not mention it. I will mention it briefly. It's not something that I have a lot of experience with, so I'll just give the gist behind it. This is more for a user who may deal with some color blindness issues. So basically, rather than turning it on right here, I'm going to go into the settings and show you what that looks like, just so you can see where that is. It's under display and it's called color correction. And if you do turn it on, what it does is it asks you to choose the filter you want to use. Red, green with green weak, red, green with red weak, blue, yellow, or grayscale. And it makes a change to the color scheme on all of the pages you're on. I will turn that back off, but that is what that does. I just didn't want to not acknowledge as I went down past the color correction. All right. Well, let's move on to our next batch of accessibility tools. We'll keep moving down the list there. So in this next batch, a couple of them in there that we're going to mention. So let's see, where are we at the moment? We've gotten, or did I get them? Maybe I think I did get all of those. I'll make sure I didn't skip something there. Oh, I did skip the dock magnifier, so I wasn't quite done with that list. So let's do that one real quick there. So the docked magnifier is another one that I definitely use, and I use it a lot of times when I'm doing trainings to help show people things that I'm trying to highlight. So there are two different magnifiers that are built in here right under the color inversion. There's the full screen magnifier, which magnifies the entire page, but then the docked magnifier is pretty clever. If I turn that on, basically what it does is the bottom half of the screen has no magnification, where the top half does get magnified. And so as I move around on the bottom, I can look at the top and I can see that text in a much larger scale up there. I can also adjust where that break is. I can drag that bar up and down as needed. Well, again, what I love about this is if I'm doing a training, I may say, hey, take a look down here. See where that's a dictation button. Oh, here's the select to speak button. And it's much larger. And that way I can really show things off a lot better when I'm doing a training. But it could be very helpful for a student just to be able to see that when they are reading some text. All right, well, I'm going to turn the docked magnifier back off. All right. Well, now I think I'm ready to move on to the next batch of them in here. All right, so let's head back into our accessibility tools. And let's see, what do we have next? Next up is automatic clicks. Okay, so automatic clicks is an interesting one. This allows you to hover your mouse above a hyperlink, and then it will automatically click for you if you don't move the mouse, if you leave it there for a set amount of time. The idea behind this is, what if there's a student who's having a difficult time pressing the mouse button or pressing the trackpad? If that is something that isn't as easy for them, they can maybe still move. They can move the mouse around, but not press the button. Well, if I turn on automatic clicks, let's do that. Now let's head back over to Dogo News. And let's say that I wanted to click on a particular, article. I want to read, an article here. Actually, let's do this. Let me open this in a new tab so I don't lose that particular article if I need to get back to it. But let's say I wanted to click on a particular article. Well, notice whenever I move my mouse, this little wheel appears around it, and like a little countdown timer goes. So that's what's happening. Is if I say, I want to read this article about we've got some cicada broods emerging. So I can just hover above that, let go of my mouse, don't do a thing, just let it do its thing, and boom, it clicks on it for me. Now, keep in mind, it's going to keep doing that, I do need to be cognizant of that it will continue to do that, but I can make some adjustments to it as well. Let me see if I can find, where did my little menu go? I have to bring it back up here. Sorry, I lost my little automatic click menu here. Let's put it back up. There are some options that come along with it. We'll try that again. Automatic clicks. There it is. So here's the little automatic click button or menu down here where I can control some things with it, such as what kind of a click is it? Is it a left click that it's doing? Is it a right click that it's doing? Is it doing a double click? Is it doing a click and drag? Is it doing a scroll? Or do I want to pause? Do I want to temporarily pause that clicking? So I can always use that to say, for a little while, let's turn off the clicking there. And that will also toggle where that little menu shows up. And then I could start that back up. Now, in addition to all of that, you can also change how much time is spent on the automatic click. So let's say I go back into my settings and we go back to accessibility. That's going to be here under the cursor and touchpad. Notice under automatic clicks, there's a little bit more detail here, like how many seconds is it? 0.6 seconds up to 4 seconds. So that gives you the ability to adjust that. I'm going to go ahead and turn that back off, but you see, so nice option for, again, a double click, a left click, a right click. That can be a good support for students there as well. Good stuff. All right. Next up, I think I was going to show the on-screen keyboard as the next one, I believe. Let's scroll down and see. Yep, that looks like that's what I'm doing. So the on-screen keyboard, if we turn that one on, it puts this little keyboard icon down here at the bottom that I can use anytime that I need to type. Couple of neat things about it. So first of all, let's pull up our George Washington report from earlier. And again, at any point, we, if we aren't using this, at the moment, we can make it smaller. We can use the little button there to make it smaller, or make it get bigger there again. We can also use this button down here that just minimizes it entirely. So don't feel that it always has to be up on the screen, but typically if you go in here to start typing, it will many times initiate that. But if not, I can come down and click on that, and it pulls up this on-screen keyboard. Now, what's the benefit of this? Well, obviously, if I have a keyboard in front of me, I'm probably not going to be using this. But if I was in a mode where, I was in tablet mode, that would certainly be nice. But here's the thing, even if you have a keyboard, it picks up some other features that your keyboard doesn't normally have. So let's say, I'm trying to, type in my document here. If I come in here and I start typing like the word George, notice as I'm doing it, it's giving me prediction across the top of the on-screen keyboard. So you get, context-aware prediction of what word you might be trying to type. And so you can choose, the words that you want to, be putting up on there. Whoops, sorry about that. I clicked off on the wrong spot, but you get the idea. So it is nice for that. It's nice for the on-screen prediction, but then it's also nice for some other things. Like, how about this? Natural handwriting. There's a little doodle button there, a little squiggle button there. If I turn that on, I can now use my stylus and I can write on here. I can say something like, this is a test. And as I'm writing, it is now transcribing that and putting it up in there. So that's another way to interact. If the keyboard is not the preferred way, we can even do natural handwriting there. And it has its own dictation tool built in. There you go. It heard me talking there. And it also has emojis built in here as well. So a lot of neat other options besides just the fact that it's an on-screen keyboard.
And there may only be one student that really could benefit from that accessibility feature being toggled on in your classroom, but like
Right.
that creates the equity that we're trying to create,
Absolutely.
And you
Yeah,
mentioned automatic clicks. I mean, I could think of many students over the years that would have really benefited from having that, who have had various mobility, things going on that could have benefited from that. So just another way to kind of create that equity in the classroom.
yeah. So I absolutely appreciate that. That is so true. I know we're giving people a fire hose of information. So right, we're not encouraging you to turn all of these on. It's not that you're gonna have every single accessibility tool turned on. We just want you to know, yeah, this is the toolbox you can pull from to customize a solution that's appropriate for each student, and that's fantastic. All right,
Let me
good.
just say one more thing,
Yeah.
Eric. Like, as far as,
Yeah.
if you're thinking about this through the lens of special education, you wouldn't give every student who has a learning disability every accommodation. You would only give them the ones that really help them make progress. And I think that's exactly how we
Absolutely.
think about utilizing these.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much. Couple more accessibility tools in this list. Large mouse cursor. That's always a good one. That's the one I had highlighted next on here. Turn that on and yeah, you get a large mouse cursor. This one, great to be able to find where your mouse is on the screen. I use this because I cannot tell you how many times I'm like, where is my mouse? And I become a large mouse cursor. And so the large mouse cursor helps me not become a cursor. Yes. So that's always a good one. And then I also highlighted sticky keys. So sticky keys, certainly a feature that have been around way before Chromebooks. The idea that if you have a difficult time holding down two keys at once, like you need to do shift with you're doing a bunch of capital letters, or control or alt, you're trying to hold that down, control C, control V, things like that, and you're having a hard time pressing two buttons at once. If you turn on sticky keys, which I have just done now, now basically anytime that I want to use, for example, the shift key. So control alt shift search. What I can do is if I tap on like the shift key twice, basically what it's going to do is it's going to lock that in. So if I tap on shift twice, once, twice, there we go. You can see it's underlined. Now shift is just depressed. It is constantly in shift mode. So now, I can type in large letters. There you go. And so, and now once I press shift again, it unstickies that. So that's great for control, for alt, for shift, for the search key. Again, if you're needing to do that to assist holding down 2 keys at once, where normally that might be a challenge. Now, there are a few other accessibility features in there. I didn't pull them out to highlight them, but I'll just give a quick shout out to them. For example, we've got things like highlighting the mouse cursor, which puts a little circle around it, just another way to be able to see it. There's mono audio. So this would be useful if there's a student who has some hearing loss in one ear. By choosing mono audio, anytime there's audio generated by the Chromebook, it's going to blend the right and left channels into one and send out that same combined audio to both ears now, so that if you have some hearing loss in the left, in the right, you're now hearing both the left and the right channel combined together. And then switch access. I do not myself have access to a switch, but this is to interface with a switch if somebody is using that as an input device. Now, those are the classic accessibility tools. I've got some more in this category that I want to speak to that aren't in this menu here, but I'm just going to take a quick pause for just a second, John, before I leave this menu behind and we explore a couple of other things that I would consider neat accessibility features. Anything to add or questions we should directly address at this point?
Sure. An amusing comment from Trisha out there in our chat about how the first thing she does is put the large cursor on. So, that's good for students. It's good for grown-ups. It's good for everybody. And then a question, Eric, are you working on a Chromebook Plus today? We had a question in the chat about that.
Good question. So I'm not, although I have one right here beside me. This is my Chromebook Plus over here. I do have one. This is, I would say, almost the equivalent of one. It's only not because the webcam is not HD. That's the only thing that disqualifies it. Otherwise, yes. So for all intents and purposes, yes, this would be the equivalent of like a Chromebook Plus model, which basically just has a requirement for amount of memory, processor speed, things like that. The Chromebook Plus, great type of device. What's so nice about them is many of them are very affordable, even for student use. If you're looking for a beefier Chromebook that has, more memory, more processing power, the Chromebook Plus models, they've got great arrangements between Google and the manufacturers to deeply discount the prices on those. So you can get, them in price ranges that are appropriate for students. The device I'm on right now, though, isn't technically one of those, but I bought it specifically for myself. Actually, 2 years ago, this is a 2-year-old Chromebook here, bought it specifically for myself, knowing that I want to, be able to do as much as possible with my Chromebook. So it's got a larger screen, way more memory, great processor. And so, yeah, it is a little snappy today. You're probably noticing it does respond pretty quickly as we are using it. Thanks for the question.
Well, we at Trafera, we love the Chromebook Plus. So I'm going to mention something at the end about that. Something we're excited
Absolutely,
about.
You should. It's a great device.
I just wanted to mention about the dictation feature that you brought up earlier. If you have anyone out there, if you have students who are afraid to write, or we're doing a research paper and they have that phobia, they're not good writers, they can't get started. That dictation feature, it just gets them started. Like they could just talk and then see that that's what becomes paragraphs. That's what becomes, their author's voice and their writing. So I just think it's really powerful for getting students over that humps to becoming, like writers and, authors.
Without a doubt. I've seen that firsthand. I remember working with a middle school student who simply, you needed to write I think it was an argumentative essay response type thing. They had like 4 paragraphs they had to do and all this sort of stuff. And he was frustrated to the point of almost tears, because keyboarding was just not something he had a comfort level with. And I'm like, hey, let's just try this. And I had him use the voice typing now, because we were in docs, but we could use the dictation tool and other things. And I'm like, just do a sentence at a time. Don't get overwhelmed. Just what's your thought? Just say it and then turn it off and then do another one, and he got a comfort level with it. And it was night and day. What we want is, yes, okay, for sure, keyboarding is a good skill. I think That's fantastic. We should all be proficient with that. But let's not have that stand in the way of other things we're trying to do. If that's something to work on, yeah, okay, set that aside, find a way to work on that, build that. But in the meantime, let's equip our students with ways to get all of the amazing ideas in their head onto the page. We don't want them cutting their sentences short or picking simpler words than the one they have in their mind because they don't know how to spell it. We want them to be able to express themselves exactly as they're thinking. So thanks for mentioning that, John. I appreciate it. All right.
Since we're
Well,
at
let's hit a couple more accessibility things. So the next couple aren't in that menu, but they're
Is this an
things that I think
existing
are
Trafera
valuable
customer,
to
though?
mention about Chromebooks. So one is a feature called Quick Answers. So Quick Answers is actually in your search settings. This is something you do need to turn on. I'll show you where in a moment. But what is it? Basically, if you right click on anything, Quick Answers will pop up and give you a definition, a pronunciation, a translation, even unit conversions right there. So if I'm inside of a document and there's a word that I'm not familiar with, if I right click, I will get a pronunciation here, and then I'll also get a quick definition of that word. I don't have I wonder if it'll let me switch over into the Spanish version of this. If it does, we'll try that. I'll do a right click on that. Oh, no, it's not picking that up at the moment. That's okay. But it will also do language translation if it's a page that was initially in a different language there. So that's a neat feature. To turn it on, it's in your search settings. So you do need to go into your settings, and from your settings, you do need to go to your search settings, which now I'm probably looking right at them and not seeing where they're at here. I'm going to forget where my search settings are at. Are they in my system preferences? Are they? I don't know. I'm not seeing them at the moment, but that's okay. They are in my search settings there, though. I promise they are. I would have to go back through and remind myself where they're at. But there, anyway, I could just search for search. I guess that would probably work. How about if I just did? If I just went there, there's my search settings. Now, where were they? Oh, they were down. They were under system preferences. I was right. I just didn't dig in deep enough. So there it is. Quick answer. So you do need to turn that on. But once it's on, that's great. Another neat, again, not classically an accessibility tool, but I think it's valuable because it allows for other ways for students to express themselves. And this is PDF annotation. This is just built into Chromebooks. You do not have to. Now, there's a lot of great, don't get me wrong, there's fantastic tools out there that bring a lot more to the table with PDFs, but you don't have to have a secondary tool to be able to annotate on PDF. So if a student has a math worksheet that they need to fill out and they would rather just do it by hand, or if they have a science worksheet and they want to draw a diagram on there, anytime they need to do that on a PDF file, you can do that with a Chromebook automatically. So for example, let's say I have this PDF here on two-step equations. Let's say I download it to my computer. We do need to download it, so I will download it here to my device. Now when I come in here to my device and I click on and I double click to open that up, now that I'm inside of the Chromebook PDF tool, you'll see here at the top, I've got a text option, I've got a annotation option, and I've got a signature option. So for example, I could do text. I could come in here and say, sure, I just want to type in my name, and I can type right on the Chromebook. That's great. That's fantastic. But I can also do annotation. Let's actually, first of all, zoom in a little bit so we can see this a little bit better there. But if I came into annotation now, I can pick the thickness that I want. I can pick the color that I want, and I'll just grab my stylus here and I'll be like, okay, so I need to start by, adding a 6 to both sides of this equation. Poof, poof. X over 4 now equals 1. Multiply both sides by 4.
Quit showing off, Eric.
And X is 4. I was a math teacher. Come on. All right. And the beauty is I can then save it or save it as a copy. Either way, that works. But it's what's so nice is how frictionless this is. The ability to be able to just write naturally on there. To go a step further, I don't have this one queued up today, but I'll mention it. Keep in mind, Chromebooks can also run Android apps. And so there's the ability to install Android versions of things. So for example, I do have with my Google Docs, both the regular web version and the Android version. The Android version of Google Docs also allows annotation on top of documents. So a student can pop over to the Android version and write on top of their document. So these are things that Chromebooks give you that you wouldn't have otherwise that are fantastic. All right, I'm going to be sensitive to time here, so I'm just going to mention a couple of other things rather than demonstrating. We probably won't be able to get as much detail on some of these, but I'm just going to hit them real quick. Everything, though, is in that resource document here, so please do refer to that. A couple of quick things I'll mention. Display tools, just heads up, there's other ways to zoom besides what we saw. There is the page level zoom. That's control plus and minus if I just want to zoom in, plus plus, minus minus, just to make the content of a page bigger or smaller. And there's also the display level zoom. That's control shift plus and minus, which means it doesn't just change the size of what's on the page. It changes the tabs. It changes everything. So you can zoom in the interface as well, not just the content of the page. Another thing I threw in this section is reading mode. This is not a Chromebook specific thing. It does work in Chrome in general, so Macs and PCs, but it's a great feature in a Chromebook as well. And basically the idea is if I'm reading an article and I'm a bit distracted by all the other things around, the comments at the bottom or the ads or things like that, I can go into my reading mode option here. So in this case, if I go down into my tools, I've got reading mode. I can pop that open. You can also pin it so you can get to it very easily in the future. And basically what will happen is, well, that may not be the best page for me to try this one for reading mode here. Let's try it again. Reading mode. There it is. Perfect. Okay. I just had to reload it. So now there it is. It takes the article you're reading here and it cleans it up. It just gives you the key information from the article. You can come in and say, I want to switch this into a different font like Lexend. I want to make the text larger. I want to change the, font color, maybe dark with light, or maybe, yellow or blue. I want to expand the space, between the letters. I want to expand the space between the lines. Heads up, Google announced a few months ago that they're adding a text-to-speech feature in here as well. It will read this aloud for you with a quick button. It's not in there yet, but that is coming as well. So all good stuff. Beyond that, I do have more resources in here. We will not demonstrate these. I'll just mention them. Don't forget, there's great recording tools in a Chromebook. So if a student needs to record themselves speaking rather than just writing, don't forget the camera tool is right there. You can record a video very easily right there on your Chromebook. You can also use the screencast tool. That's just built into Chromebooks. That's just a part of Chromebooks. Again, you can record your screen, you can record your webcam, your voice. You can also annotate, and it creates a transcript of the recording. So if you as a teacher are using this, you can make instructional videos that when the students are watching them, there's an automatic transcript on the side that can be translated into any language. So the student can say, I want to see that in Spanish. Your video's in English, but the translation of the transcript is in Spanish. Or students could use this again just to explain themselves in a different way rather than just typing. I've also got a section in here on Chrome extensions because, again, Chromebooks are obviously running Chrome. So in addition to all the amazing tools built in, don't forget you can install all kinds of wonderful extensions, whether it's, things like Read and Write, which brings text to speech, plus so many other things, Immersive Reader, Postlight Reader that cleans up web pages, Google Dictionary, which also defines words for you, Beep, which is used to add audio notes, so you can add audio feedback and audio notes, or tools like Limit that just help students stay more focused by restricting the amount of time they spend on other sites. Now, those are only a small list. If you go to the bottom of our document here, I did list quite a few more readability tools and other tools that are all third-party tools that you can install as extensions. Now, if you want to go deeper into any of those things, please do note that I have added additional links into this document that you can use as springboard. So for example, on page 2 of the document, I've got my link to a document that's all about Google tools to support all learners. So this was a subset of that. This is a document that goes beyond just Chromebooks, and it covers all kinds of tools for text-to-speech, speech-to-text, readability, reading comprehension, AI support, audio support, and on and on and on. I've also got a document called Chromebooks Can Do That, which goes beyond what we did today on the Chromebook and says, what else can Chromebooks do? And this one covers loads of features that are built into Chromebooks that you may not know about and how to take advantage and use those. And way at the bottom of the document, I have when we're talking about extensions, I do have one that is specifically on some of my favorite extensions. I did see somebody asked about support for English language learners. I should throw that in. I will be sure to add it in. I have a document specifically for that. That is bit.ly/Curts-ELL Google. And it is about Google tools to help support English language learners and those who are learning other languages. I will copy that and tell you what, we're just going to do it on the fly here. We're going to add that in as another useful resource right here. So we'll say Google tools for ELL. There we go. All right. Well, at this point, we want to make sure we have time for some Q&A. I know there's some great things that our hosts would like to share as well. So I'm going to say thank you to everybody so much for letting me hang out with you for this time. And I want to remind you that everything that we've been looking at so far, bit.ly/Curts-CB access for Chromebook access will get you to that main document, and from there out to all the other resources. All right, John and Kate, let me turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Kate, you want me to go?
Absolutely. Take it away, John.
Awesome. Well, so I just want to thank Eric for joining us and for providing all that great information, and even the awesome things that you didn't get to, Eric, because we were so excited and took up this, most of this hour. I know that those resources are being provided for people to look at and to utilize. So thank you for doing that. This is the end of our time, but I want to make sure everybody on this call knows who Trafera is. If you don't already know who we are a leading provider of ed technology to K-12 schools and a top reseller of Google Chrome devices. We offer a range of additional hardware, software solutions that support better outcomes through technology. And we also offer a robust set of services, including deployment and warranty support. Someone mentioned Chromebook Plus earlier, and I did not plant this person in the audience, but we do at Trafera have something called a Chromebook Plus bundle coming out that I'm very excited about, where if districts purchase 10 or more Chromebook Plus devices for their district, those teachers will get 6 hours of powerful PD on all manner of Google teaching and learning features, including but not limited to how teachers can use AI to transform their instruction with Google tools. And also within that PD is a lot of accessibility tools mentioned, and we show you how to utilize those similarly to how Eric just did. And so very, very cool. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat in case anybody's interested in that Chromebook Plus bundle. And finally, I would be remiss to say, if you are a Google district and you are using Fundamentals, which is the free version of Workspace, and you'd like to do a free trial, we do offer a 60-day free trial of Workspace Plus, which has a lot of these features, all of these features, and more. So that's my spiel, Kate. Spiel about Traera.
Wonderful. I just posted the link in the chat for that free trial if you're interested. And then I will just work on closing out this session with some of the outstanding questions we have from the chat. So Eric, you already touched on the question about tools for ELL students. There was a question about whether or not these accessibility tools like Dictate can read other languages. So if you're in a Spanish learning class and you're actually trying to read Spanish, do the tools on Chromebook help read? Can they
Sure.
translate other languages as well?
So that's a very common question. We get that a lot of times. Basically, the way it works is select to speak, is not going to do any kind of translation. It's going to read the text that you give it. What you can do, though, is you can pick a voice that's appropriate for the language you're wanting to read. So if I go into my accessibility settings and I go into my speech settings and I go into those text-to-speech voice settings, remember when I was popping that up, I'm using an English voice right now, but there are voices for all different languages, so that when it reads it, it is going to be reading it with the appropriate vowel pronunciation and so forth. So we can choose a voice that's appropriate for that. As far as combining that with translation, as I mentioned, there are a lot of Google tools for ELL, and there's a big section in there all about translation options that can be combined with things like that to take tools and translate text into other languages, whether it's the Google Translate extension, which is phenomenal, the Translate website, lots of other built-in translation features that exist. So I would just say when it comes to text-to-speech, picking the voice that's appropriate for the language is the way to go if you're trying to get it pronounced appropriately.
Great. And then just a nice simple question. How do you turn on PDF annotations?
So it's not anything that needs to be turned on. The key is how you access it. So if you remember when I pulled up that initial document, this PDF document, I was browsing on the internet. So this was a web-based copy of it. There's no annotation there. If you recall, the one step I did was I downloaded the PDF to my local device. And once I downloaded it, and now it was in my downloads folder, here's that two-step equations thing. If I open it up from there, notice I'm not opening it up in the web browser. I'm opening it up in the PDF tool that's built into a Chromebook. Now the text, the scribbling annotation, the drawing feature, and the signature feature are all going to be available there. So it's not a matter so much of turning anything on, it's how you open up the PDF. It does need to be downloaded first and opened up locally on the Chromebook.
Great.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Another question that got asked was just about the recording of this session. So we do record all these sessions. We put them up on our YouTube channel under kind of our webinar recording playlist. So this will become available tomorrow. We'll also send out a follow-up email that will include this link, the recording, and any other useful resources like the Chromebook bundle that John talked about, or the workspace trial, or just some general information about Trafera if you're interested in learning more about us. So that will become accessible to you tomorrow. There is another, Victoria asked, can you send the link to the Chromebook Plus bundle? Victoria, we don't have a link necessarily to that, but we can definitely email you some additional resources about it if you're interested in learning more. I have all of your contact information from your registration, so I will find you and I will send that to you. So thanks.
Kate, I also added my email address under there as well.
You could also email John.
Yep. Either way.
So with that, then I guess we will just say farewell to everyone. Thank you again so much, Eric. We're so honored and inspired by your presence here today. And thank you all the teachers for Appreciation Week. We thank you guys. You're the best. Thank you for being here and joining us for the session.
Thanks, everyone.
It was my pleasure. Wonderful to learn with everybody. Thanks so much for having me today. Look forward to continuing to learn with you in the future. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. We'll keep the poll open for a little bit longer in case you haven't had a chance. Take it, but we're saying goodbye. Thanks, everybody.